My name is Kay, 29 years old, employed as a marketing specialist at a prominent firm in Chicago. I never imagined an average Tuesday could transform my existence forever. One instant I was delivering quarterly forecasts to the executive team. The next, everything became hazy. Agonizing pain pierced through my head before complete darkness consumed me entirely. I awakened alone in a hospital bed, machines humming around me. A physician approached, clipboard in hand. "We contacted your emergency contacts, your parents," he said. "They mentioned they would come," but he stopped awkwardly. "They never arrived. If you have ever experienced abandonment by the people who should cherish you most, please like and subscribe. Comment from where you are viewing and stay for a narrative about what family truly represents." Growing up in our middle-class suburban residence outside Boston, we appeared like the ideal American family in Christmas card photographs. My father, Frank, a distinguished architect with his own small practice, always dressed in tailored suits and wore a solemn expression. My mother, Diane, instructed third grade at the local elementary school, adored by students and parents alike for her patience and imagination. My sister, Vanessa, 3 years my senior, completed our family portrait with her impeccable grades and pristine appearance. From the exterior we possessed everything: the colonial-style house with the white picket fence, family meals every evening at 6 precisely, summer holidays to Cape Cod. But underneath that refined surface lay a painful truth I encountered daily. I was the overlooked daughter, forever existing in Vanessa's shadow. "Look at your sister's science fair project," my father would declare, hardly acknowledging my own. "First place again. Why can't you dedicate yourself like Vanessa?" It wasn't that I was a weak student. I sustained a solid 3.8 GPA throughout high school, engaged in debate club and volunteered at the local animal shelter. But beside Vanessa's 4.0 student body presidency and acceptance to Princeton, my accomplishments might as well have been invisible. "Kay just needs to try harder," my mother would inform teachers during conferences even when I was sitting right there. "We know she has potential." Her sister never had these difficulties. The constant comparisons became the background music of my childhood. When I brought home an A-, the question was perpetually why it wasn't an A+ like Vanessa would receive. When I won second place in the regional art competition my parents attended, but devoted the entire time discussing how Vanessa had won first place 3 years earlier. My 16th birthday fell on the same weekend as Vanessa's college sorority formal. My parents drove 6 hours to assist her preparation, leaving me with a store-bought cake and a rushed note, promising we would celebrate the following weekend. We never did. By the time my high school graduation arrived, I had ceased expecting my parents to appear for me. They came naturally, cameras ready and smiling proudly as I walked across the stage. But the celebration dinner afterward focused entirely around Vanessa's recent engagement to Travis, a medical student from a privileged family. My acceptance letter to Northwestern University in Chicago warranted only a brief mention. "Chicago is so far away," my mother had remarked, frowning slightly. Vanessa stayed much closer to home. "It's a good school," my father acknowledged, though not quite Princeton. I selected Northwestern specifically because it was distant from Boston, far from the constant reminders that I would never measure up. Chicago symbolized freedom, an opportunity to define myself on my own terms without the burden of comparison crushing me daily. Vanessa settled into married life just 20 minutes from our parents. She had 2 picture-perfect children within 3 years, a boy and a girl with matching blonde curls like hers. She decorated her 5-bedroom colonial in the same manner as our mother, hosted dinner parties for my father's clients, and documented every instance of domestic happiness on social media. "Your sister has such a beautiful family," my mother would sigh during our increasingly rare phone calls. "When are you going to settle down, Kay? Your biological clock is ticking." Never mind that I had constructed a successful career, made wonderful friends and created a life I was proud of. In my family's perspective I was failing at the only standards that truly mattered: marriage, children and proximity to them. The last Thanksgiving I spent at home 2 years ago crystallized everything. My parents had converted my childhood bedroom into a playroom for Vanessa's kids without informing me. I slept on a pull-out sofa in the basement while Vanessa and her family occupied the guest rooms. "We thought you wouldn't mind," my mother explained when she noticed my hurt expression. "It isn't like you're here frequently anyway." During dinner, Vanessa controlled the conversation with stories about her children's accomplishments and her husband's recent promotion. When I attempted to share news about my own promotion to senior marketing strategist, my father checked his watch and asked if anyone wanted more turkey. I departed a day early, claiming a work emergency. No one questioned it. No one called to verify if I had made it back to Chicago safely. 3 weeks later, Vanessa tagged me in a family photo taken the day after I left. "Family complete," the caption read, as if my absence was not only expected but preferred. That was when I finally accepted the reality. I would never be a priority to them. I could exhaust myself attempting to earn their approval, their attention, their love, but it would always be a losing struggle. So I stopped trying. Our communication dwindled to mandatory holiday calls and occasional text messages. I constructed my life in Chicago and tried to convince myself I was better off without the constant reminder of my second-class status in the family, until the day my body betrayed me and left me facing my worst fears, being completely alone when I needed someone most. 5 years into my Chicago life, I had finally discovered my rhythm. As a digital marketing strategist at Horizon Media Group, one of the city's premier agencies, I managed campaigns for multinational clients with budgets in the millions. My apartment in Wicker Park wasn't large, but it was mine, decorated with artwork from local artists and furniture I had carefully chosen. I had a small circle of friends, mostly from work and my weekly pottery class, who accepted me exactly as I was. The distance from my family allowed me to breathe, to develop into myself without constantly being measured against Vanessa's yardstick. Our communication had settled into a predictable routine. I called on birthdays and major holidays, listened to updates about Vanessa's perfect life, and offered carefully edited versions of my own. I sent gifts at Christmas and for my niece and nephew's birthdays. They rarely acknowledged receiving them. I told myself this was normal, healthy even. Plenty of adults maintained minimal contact with their families. If there was a hollow ache in my chest when I saw friends reunite joyfully with their parents at airports, or when colleagues left work early to attend their siblings' events, I ignored it. This was the price of peace, of escaping the constant feeling of inadequacy. Work became my anchor, my identity, my validation. Every successful campaign, every client compliment, every promotion served as evidence that I was worthy, capable, valuable. I poured myself into projects regularly, working 12-hour days and bringing my laptop home on weekends. My boss, Richard, praised my dedication while simultaneously exploiting it. "Kay's our resident workaholic," he would joke in meetings. "No husband or kids to rush home to, so she can always take on one more project." I laughed along, pretending it didn't sting. Better to be known for my work ethic than my family situation. The headaches began about 6 months ago. Small ones at first, easily dismissed with over-the-counter pain relievers. Then came the fatigue that coffee couldn't cure, the occasional dizziness when I stood too quickly, the nights spent staring at my ceiling, unable to fall asleep despite bone-deep exhaustion. "You need a vacation," my friend Olivia said over lunch one day, noticing the dark circles under my eyes. "When was the last time you took more than a long weekend?" I couldn't remember. There was always another deadline, another client, another reason to postpone taking care of myself. The North Star Athletic account was supposed to be my crowning achievement. A national sports apparel company seeking to rebrand itself for a younger demographic had specifically requested me to lead their campaign. Richard had hinted that success could mean a promotion to director level, with a significant salary increase and my own team. "This is your chance to really shine," he told me, dropping a stack of research materials on my desk. "The presentation to their executive board is in 3 weeks. I need concepts by Friday." I threw myself into the project, working 16-hour days, skipping meals, and ignoring the increasingly severe headaches that now required prescription medication to manage. My vision occasionally blurred when I stared at my computer screen too long, but I attributed it to eye strain and pushed through. The morning of the presentation I woke with the worst headache yet, a vice grip of pain that made even the dim morning light unbearable. I doubled my medication, took a scalding hot shower in hopes of relieving the tension in my neck, and dressed in my most confidence-inspiring outfit, a charcoal gray suit with a silk blouse that had cost almost half my monthly rent. "You look terrible," Olivia whispered when I arrived at the office, makeup carefully applied to hide my pallor. She had joined the company only 3 months earlier as a junior copywriter and had quickly become the closest thing I had to a friend at work. "Are you sure you're okay to do this?" "I'm fine," I insisted, arranging my presentation materials. "Just nervous. This account is huge." The North Star executives filed into our conference room at exactly 10 a.m. Richard introduced me with his usual polished charm, and I took my place at the head of the table. My carefully prepared slides appeared on the screen behind me as I began to outline our strategy for revitalizing their brand. 15 minutes in, the room began to tilt. The faces watching me blurred together, their features melting like wax figures in heat. I clutched the edge of the table, attempting to stabilize myself. As you can see from the demographic analysis, my voice sounded far away, as if another person was speaking. The pain in my head intensified, a white-hot poker behind my right eye. I recall trying to reach for my water glass. I recall someone uttering my name with growing alarm. I recall the horrible sensation of my legs giving way, of falling backward into nothingness. Then darkness. Fragments of consciousness followed. Voices shouting. The ceiling moving above me. The wail of sirens. A paramedic asking questions I couldn't seem to answer. Olivia's face, pale with worry, hovering at the edge of my vision. BP's dropping. "Start in 4. Ma'am, can you tell me your name?" I attempted to respond, but my mouth wouldn't cooperate. The pain was everywhere now, crushing my skull from the inside out. Then merciful darkness again. When I fully regained consciousness, I was in a hospital bed. The lights were dimmed, but I could make out the outlines of medical equipment surrounding me. And 4 line ran into my arm and something beeped steadily nearby. My mouth felt like it was stuffed with cotton, and the pain in my head had receded to a dull throb. A nurse noticed I was awake and approached. "Welcome back," she said, checking the monitors beside me. "You gave everyone quite a scare. I'm going to let the doctor know you're awake." "What happened?" My voice was a raspy whisper. "You collapsed at work. Your colleague came with you in the ambulance. She had to go back to the office but said she would return later. She adjusted something on my fore. The doctor will explain everything. Try to rest." The doctor arrived shortly after, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a direct manner. "Miss Davis, I'm Dr. Chin. You're at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. You collapsed due to severe dehydration and exhaustion, but we're concerned there may be underlying causes. We're running some tests." "When can I leave?" I asked, already thinking about the North Star presentation. "I have work." "That's not happening anytime soon," Dr. Chin said firmly. "Your body is telling you something important and you need to listen. We've contacted your emergency contacts, your parents. They said they would come but haven't arrived yet." Something cold settled in my stomach. Of course they hadn't come. Why had I even listed them as emergency contacts? Force of habit, perhaps, or some lingering childish hope that in a true crisis they would show up for me. "They live in Boston," I explained, as if distance was the only reason for their absence. "It's a long trip." Dr. Chen's expression suggested she understood more than I was saying. "Well, you won't be alone. Your colleague Olivia seems quite concerned and we have excellent staff here." As she explained the tests they wanted to run, the medications they were giving me, the symptoms they were monitoring, I felt strangely detached. Part of me had always wondered what would happen if I truly needed my family. Now I knew. Nothing. Nothing would happen. They simply wouldn't be there. The hospital room became my new reality, a sterile universe of beeping machines, bland food trays, and the rhythmic squeaking of nurses' shoes on linoleum floors. Time lost its meaning, measured now in medication doses and shift changes rather than meetings and deadlines. I drifted in and out of sleep that first day, the medication making everything foggy. When I woke more clearly the next morning, Olivia was sitting in the visitor's chair beside my bed, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I stirred. "Hey there, sleeping beauty," she said, setting her phone aside. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck," I admitted, trying to sit up. My head swam with the movement. "What happened with the North Star meeting?" Olivia rolled her eyes. "Seriously? That's what you're worried about? You literally collapsed and got rushed to the hospital." "It was an important presentation," I insisted weakly. "Richard finished it. They were concerned about you, by the way, the North Star people, I mean. They sent flowers." She nodded toward a modest arrangement on the windowsill I hadn't noticed. "Richard, on the other hand, asked when you'd be back because, and I quote, The North Star timeline is very tight. Sounds like Richard, I murmured. I brought you some things. Olivia placed a tote bag on my bed. Pajamas, toiletries, your phone charger, and that book from your nightstand. I hope you don't mind that I used the spare key you gave me. The simple act of kindness made my throat tighten. Here was Olivia, someone I had known for only 3 months, bringing me comfort items and sitting at my bedside. Meanwhile, my own family. Have my parents called the hospital? I asked, already knowing the answer. Olivia's hesitation told me everything. I'm not sure. The nurses would know better than me. It's okay, I said quickly. They're busy and Boston is far. It's a 2-hour flight, Olivia said, an edge to her voice. But hey, I'm sure they have their reasons. We both knew what those reasons were, but neither of us said it aloud. Instead, Olivia filled me in on office gossip until a nurse came in to check my vitals. Later that afternoon, Dr. Chin returned with a neurologist, Dr. Patel. Their serious expressions sent a chill through me. Miss Davis, we have some concerns about your preliminary tests, Dr. Chin began. Your symptoms, combined with some abnormalities in your blood work and initial imaging, suggest we need to look deeper. Dr. Patel stepped forward. We'd like to perform an MRI and some additional tests. We're seeing indications of possible pressure within your cranium that could explain your severe headaches and the fainting episode. Pressure? Like what exactly? My mouth had gone dry. It could be several things, he answered carefully. Inflammation, fluid buildup, or possibly a mass of some kind. The MRI will give us a clearer picture. A mass. The word hung in the air, heavy with implication. They weren't saying tumor, but that's what they meant. Fear crawled up my spine, cold and insistent. I see, I managed. When will this happen? We've scheduled the MRI for tomorrow morning, Dr. Chin said. In the meantime, we're going to start you on medication to reduce any inflammation and help with the pain. Have my parents been updated about this? I asked, not sure why I was torturing myself by asking. Dr. Chen's expression softened with sympathy. We called the number in your file again this morning. Your father answered and said they were making arrangements to come, but needed some time. Making arrangements for a 2-hour flight. While their daughter might have a brain tumor. The wound of their indifference, always painful but usually manageable, ripped wide open. After the doctors left, I lay in the dim room, utterly alone with my fear. The thought of facing a serious diagnosis without family support made the hospital walls seem to close in around me. I considered calling them myself, but pride stopped me. If they couldn't be bothered to call the hospital for updates, why should I reach out? The evening brought a shift change, and with it a nurse named Jennifer who would become an unexpected source of comfort in the days ahead. No visitors tonight? She asked as she checked my phone. My parents live out of state, I said, the excuse feeling hollow even to my own ears. Jennifer nodded, making no judgment. Well, you've got me until 7 a.m. Fair warning, I talk a lot. My other patients usually pretend to be asleep to get some peace. Her cheerful chatter as she worked was strangely soothing. She told me about her 3 cats, her passion for true crime podcasts, and her sister's recent disastrous attempt at home hair coloring. Simple, normal life stories that momentarily distracted me from the fear gnawing at my insides. Do a lot of patients go through serious procedures alone? I asked as she was leaving. Jennifer paused in the doorway. More than you'd think. Family is complicated. But you know what? Hospital staff become pretty good substitute family when needed. We've got your back. Her words stayed with me as I tried to sleep, competing with worries about the MRI and what it might reveal. My phone sat silent on the bedside table. No calls from Boston. No concerned text messages asking how I was feeling. Just notifications from work email and social media that I couldn't bring myself to check. The MRI the next morning was a claustrophobic nightmare of mechanical noise and stillness. I closed my eyes and tried to focus on my breathing, fighting panic as the machine clunked and whirred around me. The technicians had been kind, explaining each step, but nothing could prepare me for the reality of being slid into that narrow tube while terrified about what they might find. Afterward, shaky and exhausted, I was wheeled back to my room to wait for results. Olivia had texted that she would visit after work. Jennifer's shift had ended, replaced by a more reserved nurse who efficiently checked my vitals without conversation. The hours stretched endlessly. I stared at my silent phone, willing it to ring with a call from my parents. Had they even booked flights? Were they concerned at all? Or had Vanessa scheduled another family event that took priority? The bitterness of these thoughts exhausted me, yet I couldn't stop them from circling. Years of emotional neglect had conditioned me to expect disappointment. But some childish part of me had always believed that in a true emergency they would show up. That when it really mattered I would matter to them. By the evening of my third day in the hospital, with still no word from my family, I had to accept the truth. Even hospitalization with a potentially serious condition wasn't enough to make me a priority. The realization was both devastating and strangely freeing. If this couldn't make them care, nothing would, and if nothing would, perhaps it was finally time to stop hoping. Boredom eventually overcame my reluctance to check social media. 3 days in a hospital room with only daytime television for company would drive anyone to desperate measures. I reached for my phone, telling myself I would only check work emails, not social platforms where I might see family updates. That resolution lasted approximately 30 seconds before a notification banner caught my eye. Vanessa Davis tagged you in a post. My thumb hovered over it. Instinct warned me not to look, but morbid curiosity won out. The photo loaded, bright and cheerful on my screen. My parents, Vanessa, her husband Travis, and their 2 children grinning in front of the entrance to Six Flags New England. They wore matching custom t-shirts reading, Davis Family Fun Day 2025. The timestamp showed it was taken yesterday, 2 days after I had collapsed and been hospitalized. The caption twisted the knife. Family day without the drama. Sometimes smaller is better. Perfect weather, perfect company, perfect day. 53 likes, 27 comments, all variations of beautiful family, and making memories that matter. My Aunt Susan had written, the perfect Davis family outing with a heart emoji. They were having a family fun day while I lay in a hospital bed waiting for results that could change my life forever. Not only had they not come to be with me, they were actively celebrating my absence. Without the drama, could only refer to me, the family member whose exclusion apparently improved the experience. I scrolled through the additional photos. My father carrying my nephew on his shoulders, my mother helping my niece with cotton candy, Vanessa and Travis kissing in front of a roller coaster. Everyone smiling, everyone happy, no one missing the daughter and sister who might be seriously ill. My eyes burned with unshed tears, but I refused to let them fall. Instead, I closed the app and set my phone face down on the tray table. I wouldn't comment. I wouldn't react. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of knowing they had hurt me yet again. A knock at the door interrupted my dark thoughts. Dr. Chin and Dr. Patel entered, carrying tablets and wearing carefully neutral expressions that made my stomach clench with dread. Miss Davis, Dr. Patel began, pulling up a chair beside my bed. We have your MRI results. I steeled myself, hands gripping the thin hospital blanket. Just tell me straight. Whatever it is. We found a mass in your right frontal lobe, he said, turning his tablet to show me a scan image with a distinct white area highlighted. Based on its characteristics, we believe it's a meningioma, a type of tumor that forms on the membranes covering the brain. A tumor. The word I had been dreading. My ears began to ring and I forced myself to focus on Dr. Patel's continuing explanation. The good news is that meningiomas are typically benign, meaning non-cancerous. However, the location and size of yours is causing significant pressure, which explains your symptoms. It needs to be surgically removed. Surgery, I repeated numbly. Brain surgery. Dr. Chin stepped forward. The procedure carries risks as any surgery does, but Dr. Patel is one of the best neurosurgeons in the Midwest. Given the progressive nature of your symptoms, we recommend proceeding relatively soon, within the next week if possible. They continued explaining the procedure, the recovery process, the success rates, but their voices seemed to come from very far away. All I could think was that I would be facing brain surgery completely alone. Is there someone we can call for you? Dr. Chin asked gently. Family or friends who could be here? The image of my family laughing at Six Flags flashed in my mind. No, I said firmly. There's no one who needs to be contacted. After the doctors left, promising to return the next day with more details about scheduling the surgery, I sat in stunned silence. Brain tumor. Surgery. Recovery. All words that shouldn't be part of my reality. At 29, people facing serious health crises were supposed to be surrounded by loved ones, not lying alone in a hospital room while their family enjoyed amusement parks. The unfairness of it broke something inside me, releasing a torrent of tears I had been holding back for days, for years. I was still crying when Jennifer arrived for her evening shift. She took one look at me and closed the door for privacy. "Bad news?" she asked softly, handing me a box of tissues. I nodded, unable to speak through the sobs. "Want to talk about it?" "I'm told I'm a good listener when I'm not talking your ear off." So I told her. About the diagnosis, the recommended surgery, and then, surprising myself, about my family. About the tagged photo and the years of emotional neglect that had preceded it. About facing brain surgery alone because the people who should love me unconditionally couldn't be bothered to show up. Jennifer listened without interruption, occasionally handing me fresh tissues. When I finally fell silent, emotionally drained, she sat on the edge of my bed. "Can I tell you something?" she asked. 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer at 32. My husband of 8 years decided it was too much for him and moved out 2 weeks later. My parents were dead. My sister lived overseas. I went through chemo, radiation, and reconstruction completely alone. "How did you do it?" I whispered. "One day at a time. And I wasn't really alone." She smiled slightly. "I found family in unexpected places. My neighbors, my coworkers, even other patients. Sometimes the family we're born into fails us, but the family we find along the way can be stronger than blood." "I don't know if I'm that brave," I admitted. "Nobody does until they have to be," Jennifer replied. "And listen, having a support system doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Your colleague Olivia seems to care. Let her help. And we have support groups here at the hospital for patients going through similar situations." "I still haven't decided whether to tell my family about the diagnosis," I said. "Part of me thinks they should know, but another part wants to protect yourself from more disappointment," Jennifer finished for me. "I get it. That's your decision and there's no wrong choice. But make it for the right reasons, not out of pride or spite." Her words stayed with me long after she left to attend to other patients. I picked up my phone several times to call my parents, but always set it down again. What would I say? "Hi, I have a brain tumor, but don't worry about visiting," since Six Flags was clearly more important. In the end, I decided not to tell them. Not yet, anyway. If they couldn't be bothered to call the hospital for an update, they didn't deserve to know. I would get through this on my own with the help of whatever found family I could cobble together. And maybe, just maybe, I would finally be free of the desperate need for approval that had shaped my entire life. The day before my scheduled surgery arrived with a strange sense of calm. After the initial shock and fear, I had settled into a sort of resigned acceptance. This was happening with or without family support, and I needed to focus on getting through it rather than dwelling on who wasn't there. Dr. Patel had explained the procedure in detail. They would make an incision in my scalp, remove a section of skull, carefully extract the tumor from the membrane surrounding my brain, replace the bone, and close the incision. The surgery would take approximately 5 hours, followed by at least 3 days in the intensive care unit and a minimum 2-week hospital stay afterward. "Recovery from brain surgery is a marathon, not a sprint," he had told me. "You'll need help when you're discharged. Do you have someone who can stay with you?" I had nodded vaguely, unwilling to admit I had no idea who would fill that role. Olivia arrived that morning, having taken a personal day to be with me before the surgery. She carried a small duffel bag and an air of forced cheerfulness. "I brought entertainment," she announced, pulling out magazines, a portable chess set, and her tablet loaded with movies. "I figured we could distract you until they will you away." Her deliberate normalcy was exactly what I needed. We watched a romantic comedy, played chess, which she won handily, and avoided talking about the next day's procedure until a hospital volunteer appeared with pre-surgery paperwork. "Next of kin?" the volunteer asked, pen poised over the form. Olivia and I exchanged a glance. "Just put me," Olivia said decisively, taking the clipboard. "I'm her emergency contact now." The simple act of solidarity made my eyes burn. "You don't have to do that." "Obviously I do, since some people don't understand what family obligations actually mean," she muttered, filling in her information. "Besides, somebody needs to water your plants and feed your sourdough starter while you're in here." Jennifer arrived for her shift just as Olivia was leaving. The two of them exchanged introductions and phone numbers to coordinate visits during my recovery. The ease with which they assumed responsibility for me, virtual strangers just days ago, contrasted sharply with my actual family's absence. "I've got something for you," Jennifer said after Olivia left. She handed me a slip of paper with several names and room numbers. "These are patients who've either had similar surgeries or are also going through treatment alone. Everyone on this list said they'd welcome a visitor if you feel up to it." "Now, the night before surgery," he shrugged. "Sometimes talking to people who get it helps more than anything else. No pressure, though." After Jennifer moved on to her other patients, I stared at the list, considering. Sitting alone with my thoughts didn't seem appealing, so I changed into the robe Olivia had brought and made my way to the first room on the list. Over the next 2 hours, I met 5 extraordinary people. Martin, a 67-year-old retired teacher who had undergone the exact same surgery 3 weeks earlier and was making an excellent recovery. Sophia, a 35-year-old single mother battling lymphoma whose family lived in Colombia. Darius, a college student whose parents had disowned him when he came out, now facing leukemia with fierce determination. Ruth, an elderly woman whose children lived across the country recovering from a stroke. And Jackson, a 40-year-old divorced father of 3 who had survived a traumatic brain injury from a car accident. Each conversation left me feeling less alone, less uniquely abandoned. Their stories of resilience, of finding strength when it seemed impossible, wrapped around me like a protective shield. By the time I returned to my room, exhausted but calmer, I felt part of something larger than myself, a community of survivors. I slept surprisingly well that night and woke ready to face what was coming. The pre-surgery preparations passed in a blur of forms, vital checks, and last-minute instructions. Olivia arrived just before they came to take me to the operating room, squeezing my hand and promising to be there when I woke up. "You've got this," she whispered. "And you've got me. That's enough." The anesthesiologist asked me to count backward from 10. I made it to 7 before darkness claimed me. Waking after brain surgery is nothing like in movies. There was no dramatic moment of consciousness, just a gradual, disorienting emergence into a world of pain and confusion. Voices floated around me, hands touched me, machines beeped, but everything felt disconnected, as if happening to someone else. Time lost all meaning. I drifted in and out, catching fragments of conversation between nurses and doctors. Stable. Responsive. Good signs. The words registered without context, slipping away before I could fully grasp them. When I finally surfaced more completely, the first face I saw was Olivia's, tired but smiling beside my ICU bed. "Hey there," she said softly. "Surgery went great. Tumor's gone. You're going to be fine." I tried to speak, but my throat was too dry. She offered a small ice chip from a cup beside the bed. "Jennifer's here too," Olivia added. She came by on her break and Martin from down the hall sent flowers. "You've got quite the fan club forming." A nurse appeared, checking monitors and adjusting something above my head. "Dr. Patel will be by soon to give you the full update, but everything went according to plan. How's your pain level on a scale of 1 to 10? The throbbing in my head was intense but somehow distant. 6, I managed. "We'll get you something for that," she promised, making a note in my chart. The next 3 days in the ICU passed in a haze of pain medication, brief periods of clarity, and the constant presence of medical staff. Olivia visited daily, bringing updates from work and small tokens of encouragement. Jennifer stopped by during every shift, sometimes just for a few minutes, sometimes longer when her patient load allowed. On the 4th day I was moved to a regular room, my head wrapped in bandages, my body weak but my mind increasingly clear. Dr. Patel visited with good news. The tumor had been completely removed, was confirmed benign, and my prognosis was excellent. "You'll need physical and occupational therapy," he explained, "and we'll monitor you closely for the next year, but I expect you to make a full recovery." That evening, as I was slowly eating the first real meal I'd been allowed since surgery, my phone, which had been largely ignored on the bedside table, began to vibrate repeatedly. Text message notifications and missed call alerts filled the screen in a sudden flurry of activity. 17 missed calls from Dad. 22 missed calls from Mom. 26 missed calls from Vanessa. And 1 text message from my father. "We need you. Answer immediately." I stared at the screen in disbelief. After nearly a week of complete silence while I faced a brain tumor and surgery alone, suddenly my family was desperately trying to reach me. Not to check on me, not to apologize for their absence, but because they needed me. With shaking hands, I opened my father's text message to find a second one below it. Your grandfather is in the hospital. Stroke. Doctors say he might not make it. He's asking for you. Call us. My grandfather, the one person in my extended family who had always seen me, always made me feel valued. Who had taught me to fish and play chess and appreciate classical music when I was young. Who sent me birthday cards with personal notes even after I moved to Chicago. Who called me every month just to chat. And he was dying, asking for me while I lay in a hospital bed myself, recovering from brain surgery my family didn't even know about. Without thinking twice, I pressed the call button beside my bed. When a nurse appeared, I asked for Jennifer. This was a moment I couldn't face alone. Jennifer arrived within minutes, her expression shifting from routine professional inquiry to concern when she saw my face. What's wrong? Are you in pain? I wordlessly handed her my phone, the barrage of messages and the text from my father displayed on the screen. Ah, she said after reading it. Family emergencies have interesting timing, don't they? My grandfather, I said, my voice breaking. He's the only one who always. And now he's dying and I'm here and they don't even know why I haven't answered their calls. Jennifer sat on the edge of my bed. What do you want to do? It was such a simple question, but it cut through the tangle of emotions clouding my judgment. What did I want to do? Not what should I do or what was expected, but what did I actually want? I closed my eyes. Memories of my grandfather flooding in. Grandpa Howard taking 8-year-old me fishing at dawn, just the two of us while the rest of the family slept, teaching me to bait my own hook and clean my catch, telling me I was brave and capable when my parents only saw what I couldn't do. Grandpa Howard attending my high school art show when my parents had a conflict with Vanessa's debate tournament, standing proudly beside my paintings and introducing himself to everyone as Kay's grandfather, yes, the talented artist. Grandpa Howard calling me after every major holiday I spent alone in Chicago, not to make me feel guilty for being absent, but to tell me he missed me and understood why I needed distance. I need to see him, I said finally. But I don't know if I can physically. I just had brain surgery. Let me get Dr. Patel, Jennifer said. This is a medical question first, emotional second. Dr. Patel was direct when consulted. Travel is not advisable for at least 2 weeks post-craniotomy. The pressure changes during air travel could cause complications, and you're still at risk for seizures, bleeding, and infection. Where is your grandfather? Boston, I said, heart sinking. That's definitely a no for air travel, he confirmed. Even a car trip of significant length would be ill-advised. You need rest, a controlled environment, and immediate access to medical care if complications arise. So I can't go, I whispered, tears welling. I can't say goodbye. You can't travel, he corrected gently. But there are other options. Video calls, for instance. Olivia, who had arrived during this conversation, spoke up. First things first. You need to call your family back. They don't even know why you haven't been answering. He was right, of course. With Jennifer and Olivia flanking me like protective sentinels, I dialed my father's number. He answered on the first ring. Kay, where have you been? We've been trying to reach you for days. No, hello. No, how are you? Just immediate accusation. I've been in the hospital, Dad, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Pause. What? Are you okay? Not really. The simplicity of the answer seemed to hang in the air. I collapsed at work last week. Brain tumor. I had surgery 4 days ago. Silence stretched across the line so long I thought we might have been disconnected. Finally, my father's voice returned, strangely subdued. Are you serious? Why didn't you tell us? The absurdity of the question made me laugh, a short, harsh sound that pulled painfully at my incision. The hospital called you multiple times. You said you were coming, but you never did. You went to Six Flags instead. Another long pause. We didn't think it was that serious. The nurse just said you were dehydrated and exhausted. And you didn't think to check back? To call the hospital for updates? To call me directly? Each question tightened my grip on the phone. I woke up alone in a hospital bed, Dad. I was diagnosed with a brain tumor alone. I went into brain surgery alone. K.I. He seemed at a loss for words, something I'd never witnessed before. We should have checked. I'm sorry. The apology, likely the first I'd ever received from him, Should have felt momentous. Instead it felt hollow. Too little too late. Grandpa Howard, I said, changing the subject. How is he? My father sighed heavily. Not good. Major stroke 3 days ago. He's conscious but weak. The doctors aren't optimistic. I can't travel, I said. Doctor's orders. But I want to talk to him. Can you set up a video call? Of course. I'll text you when we're in his room. A hesitation. Your mother and sister are here. They want to talk to you. Not now, I said firmly. I'm tired. Brain surgery does that to a person. Just set up the call with Grandpa. After hanging up, I sagged against the pillows, emotionally drained. Olivia squeezed my hand. You did great, she said. Very calm, very clear boundaries. He apologized, I said, still processing the unprecedented event. I think I might have shocked him. Good, Jennifer said firmly. Sometimes people need a reality check. 3 hours later, my phone rang with a video call. Taking a deep breath, I answered to see my grandfather's hospital room. My father was adjusting the phone angle, my mother and Vanessa visible in the background, both looking uncomfortable. Grandpa, I called softly. It's Kay. The camera moved to show my grandfather's face, thinner and grayer than I remembered, but his eyes lighting up at the sight of me. Kay girl, he said, using his old nickname for me. His voice was slurred but intelligible. There you are. I tried to angle my phone so my bandaged head wasn't visible, but his sharp eyes missed nothing. What happened to you? He asked, concern evident even through his weakened state. Just a little surgery, I said, trying to sound casual. Nothing to worry about. Liar, he said with a ghost of his old teasing smile. Your father told me. Brain tumor. My brave girl. Tears spilled down my cheeks. Even now, sick and dying, he was more concerned about me than himself. I'm okay, Grandpa. The doctors say I'll make a full recovery. Good. That's good. His eyes drifted closed briefly, then opened with effort. Listen to me, Kay girl. The lake house. It's yours. I blinked in confusion. What? My cabin at Crystal Lake. I'm leaving it to you. Papers already signed. His words were becoming more slurred. Always your special place. Remember. I did remember. The small cabin on Crystal Lake where I'd spent summers as a child. Fishing with Grandpa Howard in the early mornings, reading on the screened porch during afternoon thunderstorms, falling asleep to the sound of loons calling across the pristine water. It was my favorite place in the world, a sanctuary where I had always felt truly at peace. Grandpa, you don't have to. Already done, he interrupted. You'll take care of it. No, you will. His gaze intensified. One more thing, Kay girl. Stop running. What do you mean? From them, he said, glancing toward where my parents must have been standing out of frame. Talk to them. Make them hear you. Then decide. Running keeps the hurt alive. His words struck me with the force of truth. I had been running from my family for years, physically and emotionally distancing myself, but never truly confronting the pain they had caused. Never demanding to be seen, to be heard, to be valued. I had accepted my role as the forgotten daughter and fled rather than fighting for the recognition I deserved. I will, I promised. Next time I see them. No time like now, he said with a hint of his old stubbornness. I'm tired. You talk to them. His eyes closed again. Love you, Kay girl. Always have. I love you too, Grandpa, I whispered. But he was already drifting to sleep, the stroke having sapped his limited energy. My father's face appeared on screen. He needs to rest. The doctors say he trailed off, his gaze finally focusing on my appearance. My God, Kay. Your head. Brain surgery, I reminded him flatly. Remember. He seemed lost for words again, a new and disconcerting experience for a man who always knew exactly what to say. We should have been there. Yes, I agreed. You should have. My mother appeared beside him, her hand flying to her mouth when she saw me. Kay, your beautiful hair. Of all the things to focus on. Not my health, not my fear, not my solitude during a life-threatening ordeal. My hair. It'll grow back, I said coldly. Unlike your daughter's trust in you. Vanessa pushed into frame, her perfect features arranged in a sympathetic expression that didn't reach her eyes. Kay, if we had known it was serious, of course we would have come. Would you? I challenged. Because the hospital called and told you I had collapsed and was hospitalized. That should have been enough for any normal family to at least call and check on me. Instead, you tagged me in your family day without the drama, while I was waiting to hear if I had cancer. Vanessa had the grace to flush. That wasn't. I didn't mean. Yes, you did, I said with certainty. You've always been happier when I'm not around to complicate your perfect family narrative. Well, congratulations. You got your wish. I faced the scariest moment of my life completely alone because my family couldn't be bothered to pick up a phone. My father cleared his throat. "Okay, we made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But we're your family. We love you. Do you?" I asked simply. Because love means showing up. It means caring. It means making someone a priority. I can't remember the last time any of you did that for me. That's not fair, my mother protested. We've always supported you. When? I demanded. When have you ever put me first? When have you ever chosen me over Vanessa? When have you ever recognized my accomplishments without comparing them to hers? The silence that followed was answer enough. I'm hanging up now, I said. I'm tired and I need to rest. Tell Grandpa I'll call tomorrow. And don't worry about coming to Chicago. I have people taking care of me. Real family. I ended the call before they could respond, then turned off my phone entirely. I'd kept my promise to Grandpa Howard. I'd spoken my truth, and for the first time in my life, I felt free of the desperate need for their approval. Olivia, who had stepped out during the call to give me privacy, returned with a cup of ice chips. How did it go? Exactly as it needed to, I replied. I'm ready to focus on healing now. 2 weeks after my surgery, against Dr. Patel's strong recommendation but with his reluctant approval, I boarded a train to Boston. My grandfather's condition had stabilized somewhat, though the prognosis remained poor. I was determined to see him one last time, to thank him in person for being the one family member who had always seen my worth. Olivia had insisted on accompanying me, taking additional vacation days to serve as what she called my medical bodyguard. Jennifer had provided detailed instructions for managing my medication, recognizing warning signs, and handling potential complications during travel. My work colleagues had organized a meal delivery service for when I returned to Chicago, and Martin from the hospital had offered his lakefront cottage for my recovery period once I was cleared for longer travel. The outpouring of support from virtual strangers contrasted sharply with my family's belated, awkward attempts at reconciliation. My father had called daily since our confrontation, his conversations stiff and formal, asking about my health but never addressing the deeper issues between us. My mother had sent flowers to my hospital room with a card signed, "Love, Mom and Dad," but no personal message. Vanessa had removed the family without drama post from social media and replaced it with a generic "thinking of you" message tagging me. None of it felt genuine. None of it acknowledged the years of emotional neglect that had culminated in my facing brain surgery alone. But I wasn't going to Boston for them. I was going for Grandpa Howard. The train journey was exhausting. Each bump and vibration sending pain through my still healing skull. By the time we arrived at Boston South Station, I was pale and shaking, leaning heavily on Olivia. "We're getting a hotel room first," she insisted. "You need to rest before facing them." I didn't argue. The 4-hour train ride had drained what little energy I had built up during my hospital stay. We checked into a hotel near the hospital where my grandfather was being treated, and I collapsed onto the bed, asleep almost instantly. The next morning, feeling somewhat recovered, we took a taxi to Massachusetts General Hospital. I had deliberately not informed my family of my arrival, wanting to see my grandfather without their hovering presence if possible. Luck was with me. When we reached his room, it was empty of visitors, though the collection of jackets and coffee cups suggested my parents and sister had just stepped out, probably for breakfast in the cafeteria. Grandpa Howard was awake, staring out the window at the Boston skyline. He turned as I entered, his face lighting up with surprise and joy. "Hey girl," he said, his speech still slurred but stronger than during our video call. "You came." "Of course I came," I said, moving to his bedside and carefully leaning down to kiss his cheek. Wild horses couldn't keep me away. His gaze took in my appearance. The healing incision partially visible beneath my loose-knit cap, the weight loss from my hospital stay, the lingering pallor. "You shouldn't have traveled. Too soon after surgery." "Pot kettle," I teased gently, gesturing to his own hospital bed. Besides, I had to thank you in person for the lake house. But more importantly, for always being the one person in this family who really saw me. He reached for my hand, his grip friendlier than I remembered but still warm and reassuring. Always been proud of you, Kay. Your strength, your independence, your heart. I blinked back tears. I learned it from you. Did you talk to them? He asked. Your parents? Vanessa. I told them how I felt, I confirmed. But I don't think they really heard me. Or if they did, they don't know how to fix it. Maybe some things can't be fixed. He shook his head slightly. Family's complicated. People make mistakes. Big ones. Doesn't mean they don't love you. Love should be more than an obligation, I said. More than a word. It should be actions. It should, he agreed. But sometimes people don't know how to show it right. Doesn't mean it isn't there. Before I could respond, the door opened and my parents and Vanessa walked in, carrying coffee cups and paper bags from the cafeteria. They froze at the sight of me sitting beside Grandpa Howard's bed. Kay, my mother gasped. What are you doing here? You shouldn't be traveling. Hello to you too, Mom, I said dryly. I'm fine. Thanks for asking. My father recovered first, setting down his coffee and approaching cautiously as if I might bolt. We didn't know you were coming. You should have told us. We would have picked you up at the station. I managed, I said, gesturing to Olivia, who stood quietly in the corner. This is my friend Olivia. She's been taking care of me since the surgery. An uncomfortable silence fell as the subtext of my words registered. Since the surgery you weren't there for. Vanessa broke the tension, stepping forward with forced brightness. You look good. I mean, considering, well, you know. Brain surgery, I supplied. You can say it, Vanessa. It's not contagious. My grandfather chuckled weakly. Still got that sharp tongue. Good. You're going to need it. He looked pointedly at my family. All of you sit down. Time for some truth-telling. No one argued with Grandpa Howard. Not even now. My parents perched awkwardly on the vinyl visitor chairs while Vanessa leaned against the windowsill. Olivia discreetly slipped out, murmuring something about finding coffee. Been watching this family drama for too many years, Grandpa Howard began. My grandfather began, his voice gaining strength with each word. Kept my mouth shut because it wasn't my place to interfere. But I'm dying, so to hell with politeness. Dad, you're not dying, my father protested weakly. Shut up, Frank, Grandpa Howard retorted. I'm 83 with a massive stroke. I'm dying. Question is whether this family dies with me. He fixed my father with a stern gaze. You and Diane failed, Kay. Not once. Repeatedly for years. My father opened his mouth to object, but Grandpa Howard raised a shaking hand. Let me finish. You gave Vanessa everything. Attention, praise, priority. Left nothing for your younger daughter except impossible standards and constant comparison. My mother's face flushed. That's not true. We love both our daughters equally. Love isn't equal if it isn't equitable, my grandfather countered. You never saw Kay for herself. Only saw how she measured up to her sister. Made her invisible in her own family. Tears sprang to my eyes at hearing someone finally articulate what I had felt my entire life. Invisible. Unseen. A perpetual disappointment by comparison. And you, Grandpa Howard turned to Vanessa. Accepted it. Enjoyed it. Special treatment. Golden child. Never stood up for your sister. Never shared the spotlight. Vanessa's perfect composure cracked. That's not fair. It's not my fault if Kay always felt overshadowed. I can't help being successful. No, I said quietly. But you could have helped throwing it in my face. Tagging me in your perfect family photos while I was lying in a hospital bed. That was a choice, Vanessa. I didn't know you were having surgery, she protested. You knew I was hospitalized, I countered. The hospital called and instead of picking up the phone to check on me, you took our parents to Six Flags and posted about how much better family time is without my drama. Vanessa at least had the grace to look ashamed. I shouldn't have posted that. It was thoughtless. It was cruel, I corrected. But it wasn't new. It was just the latest in a lifetime of moments where this family made it clear I was an afterthought at best, an inconvenience at worst. My father stood abruptly, pacing the small room. This isn't fair. We made one mistake. But we should have checked on you at the hospital. Yes. but to act like we've been terrible parents your entire life. Sit down, Frank, Grandpa Howard ordered. And listen for once in your life. My father subsided into his chair, looking mutinous. Kay, my grandfather said gently. Your turn. Say what needs saying. All of it. I took a deep breath, gathering the courage he so clearly believed I possessed. I spent my entire childhood trying to be seen by you, I began, looking directly at my parents. Trying to earn the attention and approval you gave Vanessa so freely. I brought home good grades, won awards, did everything right. And it was never enough. Never as good as Vanessa. We were proud of you, my mother insisted. Were you? Because you never said it. Not without adding, but Vanessa did it better. Or, if only you worked a little harder. The words poured out now, years of suppressed hurt finding voice. Do you know why I moved to Chicago? Not for the job. To escape. To find out who I could be without constantly being measured against Vanessa and found wanting. We never meant to make you feel that way, my father said, his voice quieter now. Intention doesn't change impact, I replied. And the impact was that I faced brain surgery completely alone because I didn't believe my own family cared enough to be there. That's not a small thing, Dad. That's the result of years of feeling unimportant to the people who should value me most. Silence fell after my words, heavy with unspoken emotions. My grandfather reached for my hand again, squeezing it encouragingly. Tao what? Vanessa finally asked. Where does this leave us? That depends, I said. I don't need grand gestures or dramatic apologies. I need change. Real change. I need to be seen and valued for who I am, not who you wish I was or how I compare to Vanessa. I need my accomplishments acknowledged without comparison. I need to be a priority sometimes, not an afterthought. We can do that, my mother said, tears streaming down her face. We want to do better, Kay. We love you. Maybe you do, I acknowledged. But love without respect, without effort, without showing up when it matters. That's not enough anymore. My grandfather's monitor beeped, and he closed his eyes briefly, the emotional conversation taking its toll on his fragile health. I think that's enough for today, I said, standing carefully. Grandpa needs to rest, and so do I. Olivia and I are staying at the Hampton downtown. I'll come back tomorrow. As I turned to leave, my father spoke, his voice uncharacteristically humble. Will you give us a chance, Kay? To prove we can change? To be the family you deserve? I paused at the door. I'm not making any promises. But I'm not running anymore either. That's a start. 6 months later, I stood on the dock of Crystal Lake, watching the sunset paint the water in shades of gold and crimson. My recovery had been slow but steady, with occasional setbacks but overall progress that impressed my medical team. The cabin, now legally mine following Grandpa Howard's peaceful passing 3 weeks after our hospital conversation, had become my sanctuary during convalescence. The relationship with my family remained complicated. There had been awkward visits, difficult conversations, moments of progress followed by frustrating backsliding into old patterns. My parents were trying, in their imperfect way, to understand the damage they had caused and to build something new. Vanessa and I maintained a careful distance, civil but not close, the years of imbalance not easily overcome. But the most profound change was within me. I no longer defined myself by their approval or validation. I no longer carried the desperate need to prove my worth to people who had failed to see it. I had discovered my own strength in crisis and built connections that fulfilled the true meaning of family. Olivia had become my closest friend, weekend visits to the lake cabin a regular tradition. Jennifer and I exchanged regular text messages and met monthly for coffee when our schedules aligned. The hospital support group had evolved into a tight-knit social circle, people who understood struggle and resilience in ways my biological family never could. I had created my own definition of family, one based on choice rather than obligation, on showing up rather than shared DNA. The painful lesson of my hospital abandonment had ultimately given me the greatest gift: freedom from the chains of seeking approval from those unable or unwilling to give it. As the sun dipped below the tree line, casting long shadows across the dock, I heard car doors slamming and voices approaching. My chosen family, arriving for the weekend gathering I now hosted monthly. People who came because they wanted to be with me, not because they felt they should be. That was the deepest lesson my ordeal had taught me. Family isn't always who raises you. Sometimes it's who shows up when you collapse, who sits beside your hospital bed, who helps you heal in all the ways that matter. Sometimes you have to lose what you thought you needed to find what you truly deserve. Have you ever had to redefine what family means to you? Comment below with your experience. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and self-discovery. Share with someone who might need to be reminded that sometimes the family we choose is more healing than the family we're born into. Thank you for listening, and remember, you deserve people who show up for you without being asked.